about how police got word that something was happening.
Whoa.
So
You're not even going to establish the facts of the case? What is this, spoilers from the news segment that I chose to look at? Listen, there was an assassination attempt on Nancy Pelosi. In Nancy Pelosi's San Francisco home was broken into by a lunatic with a hammer who was shouting, "Where's Pelosi? Where's Pelosi?" before attacking her infinity years old husband with the hammer, who is currently in the hospital. Police have got the guy. An intruder demanding to see U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi broke into her San Francisco home and attacked her husband with a hammer early on Friday, officials said, in an assault that stoked fears about political violence ahead of the midterm elections. Paul Pelosi was taken to a hospital where he underwent surgery for a skull fracture and injuries to his right arm and hands. He's expected to make a full recovery, which is pretty surprising for an 82-year-old who was attacked with a hammer, I have to say. The adrenochrome they give the elites must be some stern stuff. Yeah, look, let's get right to it, okay? This is the vanguard. You guys know about vanguards, right? You know about Leninism? Well, this is the vanguard for fascism. The first wave of violence against the enemies of the fascists comes not from the state, but from the most radical devotees who are indoctrinated into the messaging of the state and form the first wave. The brown shirts who did work for the Nazis were not like the most stable people, you know. The initial waves of fascist violence are always built by the most like unstable, like loonies who get brought in by the conspiracy bait stuff. And at that point, it is the prerogative of the fascists to go, oh, well, we disavow this, we disavow that, while continuing to spread the lies that motivate the mentally ill and the conspiracy-addled to engage in those behaviors. So, who was this guy? Now, his name, delightfully, is none other than David DePape, or perhaps DePape. I kind of like DePape. DePape? DePape? DePeepy. Who knows? You know, he is a well, let's just read the article, huh? A 2013 article in the San Francisco Chronicle identified him as a hemp jewelry maker. And said he lived with the nudist activists. Other photos published by the Chronicle show DePape fully clothed at a nude wedding on the steps of San Francisco City Hall. What an odd person to represent far-right ideology, but not so. Think about it. Linda Schneider, a California resident, told CNN she got to know DePape roughly 8 years ago, and that he occasionally house sat for her. When they met, she said, DePape was living in a storage unit in the Berkeley area and told her he'd been struggling with hard drugs, but was trying to create a new life for himself. She said he was extremely shy. He said he couldn't even go and have a bank account because he was terrified of speaking to a teller. But Schneider later received really disturbing emails from DePape in which he sounded like a megalomaniac and so out of touch with reality, she said. She said she stopped communicating with him because it seemed so dangerous, adding that she recalled him using biblical justification to do harm. This goes on to explain, Pigeon, when I look at her, she chirps. This goes on to explain the extent of his, let's just say, IRL schizo posting journey. Last year, David DePape posted links in his Facebook page to multiple videos produced by MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell, falsely alleging the 2020 election was stolen. Other posts included transphobic images and linked to websites claiming COVID vaccines were deadly. The death rates being promoted are what they want promoted as the death rate, one post read. DePape also posted links to YouTube videos with titles like Democrat Farce Commission to investigate January 6th Capitol riot collapses in Congress, and Global Elites plan to take control of your money, revealed. These are very YouTube titles, you know? Like, you could just write these out without saying they're from YouTube videos, and you'd know anyway, like, instantly. He defended Derek Chauvin and said that his conviction was a modern lynching. That is, the conviction of the police officer who murdered George Floyd was a modern lynching. Posted about the Great Reset, so on. It goes on for a while. QAnon, anti-Semitism. We have some videos that he posted. Here we have one in which he alleges that the Ukraine war is the Jews, actually. except for some reason, it seems to be the Russian occupied territory that's Jewish, which is odd because you'd think the far right guys would take the opposite stance, where they would say that actually it's like the Western Jews who are lying about Russia to, again, real schizo posting here. We have a Jimmy Dore video with Noam Chomsky being cited in the deranged website posting of a schizophrenic, actually insane. So, you know, here now we have the fruits of our labor. Of course, there's quite a lot here. You get the idea. Far right Nazi posting, fantastic stuff. And so eventually, you know, this very mentally unwell man, you know, got a hammer. And of course, he's not the brightest, so he went to Pelosi's home, I believe, while Pelosi was in session. Like, she's in Washington right now. Like, her job is in DC. So he went over there like, "Where's Pelosi?" And she's literally on the other side of a country in a job where you can predict where she's going to be publicly. So, you know, not the brightest lad there. Yeah, perhaps he thought she commuted daily between her San Francisco home. We shouldn't assume they're schizophrenic, might just be a dumb conservative. No, I think they're schizophrenic and conservative, actually. I think that mental illness is something which is easily capitalized on. And I think that right now, the right has made a very active effort to capitalize on the unwell, the mentally ill. Why do you think conspiracism almost always ends in JQ posting and QAnon, right? Like, there is a very clear overlap between far right beliefs and legitimate mental unwellness. Now, of course, some people get snippy about this, you know, "Oh, we shouldn't say mentally ill people are dangerous." I'm not saying that, okay? I'm saying that people who are detached from reality, and of people who are mentally ill, a very small portion are actually detached from reality. Most mentally ill people are a bit anxious, they're a bit depressive, you know, they can have difficulty with some situations. Maybe they require a bit more time or empathy with certain like social context, but they're not detached from reality. They're not dangerous. But for those who are detached from reality, they are very vulnerable to far right conspiracism, and that's what this guy was, David DePupu or whatever. Hit a 82-year-old man with a hammer. Great stuff. Okay, so why is this important? Well, obviously, this was one of the most significant attacks on, or attempted attacks on, a political figure in recent American history. I mean, really think for a second. If Pelosi had been there, he would have killed her. He would not have hit her once on the head with a hammer and then run away and left her to be taken care of by the hospital. He would have bludgeoned her to death with that hammer. And that would have been the murder of the. Of course, keep in mind that Pelosi has a security detail that follows her around. So in reality, if she had actually been there, that guy would have been riddled with bullet holes the moment he even stepped into their property. So the security detail follows her because she's the Speaker of the House. So in reality, this guy, this guy probably didn't have much of a chance there. But the point is, like, what does this mean? And what does this say about the future of our country? Because we're in the period of time now where there is a very, very, very heightened threat of violence against left-leaning political figures, right? I mean, January 6th was an obvious example. And if you want to know where the Republican Party has gone from there, Mike Pence has been defending Trump lately, even though Mike Pence was the victim of, like, they wanted to lynch him. The Jan 6 mob wanted to lynch Mike Pence, who Trump did not deter them from doing so, you know. Trump practically encouraged it, you know, it's calling him like he didn't do what he needed to. He didn't step up when he needed to. And Mike Pence is still defending Trump, you know, because the Republican Party is lockstep right now. No matter what, like, they're in this together. And what they're in for is a fascist coup. And one of the best ways of preempting something like that is to sort of promote a chilling effect by deterring the ability for left-wing activists and politicians, left wing here with Pelosi, but still, even then, from doing what they need to do to meaningfully politically represent themselves with stochastic terrorism. And once you've done that enough, once you've destabilized the system enough, you get to really reinforce this with state violence. If you want evidence of this, if you want evidence that this is part of broader behavior, and by the way, the fact that I should even need to convince anyone of this when Republicans have been screaming about how their country is dying, the election was stolen from them, you know, all the lies that they promote in an effort to essentially implicitly legitimize behavior like this. which they've continued with unabated. But here's a clip from Fox News. Take a look at this, okay? Assassination attempt on the Democratic Speaker of the House. And what do we get from Fox?
This alleged perpetrator to be treated the exact same way if he had attacked anybody else. Because a lot of people get hit with hammers. A lot of people get attacked. And a lot of the times they're out on bail the next day and it's a simple assault charge. So I don't know why this guy is being treated differently. And he's facing what? Attempted homicide. He's in prison right now. We've seen people assault people all the time randomly with all kinds of weapons, and we see them released the next day. So I don't know why this guy's getting all of a sudden special treatment or different treatment because the victim was so high profile. Remember, if you call on a welfare check, the left wants to send a social worker. What if a social worker had come to this call? You would have had a dead husband and you would have had a dead social worker. That's why you have to have police, and I agree with Tyrus. Police responded right away, and they handled the situation. Thank God the police were there. And remember, the Democrats defunded the police in San Francisco.
That's right. An attempted assassination on an opposing political leader. National Fox News TV took the time to martyr the guy who did it by saying that he's being unfairly targeted. You know, oh, all these other guys get out the next day on bail after assaulting people with hammers, which, no, they don't. You know, thank God for our police. By the way, the Democrats want to ruin our country. This is an explicit endorsement of the attack, is what this is. There's no other way to frame this. And under absolutely no circumstances can this be interpreted as any other way. The priorities here. The man who did this is a martyr. The Democrats are tearing our country apart. Thank God the police were there. You know? That's it. Oh, what did he do? He only tried to kill, yeah, like the third in line to succession to the president of the United States, you know? That's their job. And we're going to see stuff like this. And there is going to be more and more directed stochastic terrorism against prominent left-leaning figures. And this is what they want. And the reason they want this is because it is part of their journey to taking over the country. We really are in the end game here. Yeah, the Feme murders? Yeah. Were a series of politically motivated murders in Weimar Germany from 1919 to 1923 committed by elements of the German far right against political opponents they consider treasonous. This happens every time. This happens. Fascist governments don't just magically rise to power without any preemptive violence, you know. The dissenting elements of society have to be brought in line first. And when they can't use the sort of the weight of the state to do it, they have to use psychotic people. They have to use people who are willing to essentially take the bullet for the cause. And that's what this guy was. That's what David DePepe was. So Fox is excusing assault on politicians. They've been defending Jan 6 for years now. The last CPAC included a religious martyrdom ceremony for the people who were arrested for attacking the Capitol. The last CPAC had a little, it was like a shrine to them. They like play acted out. The little LARP cage, yeah. Or Marjorie Taylor Greene, you know, like sang the praises of the brave patriots who were martyred and imprisoned for their like free expression. This isn't just like crazy QAnon stuff. This was endorsed by the Republican Party. This is the Republican Party. Yes, it does look like porn. This was at CPAC. Let's not forget this banner at CPAC. Yeah, you know, in case people are wondering if they like intend on keeping it subtle, you know? What do you think stuff like this is going to lead to? We will not have a democracy to protect from them unless radical action is taken. Joe Biden, and I mean this sincerely, like at this, like we really have like this is what we have right now, which is like Joe Biden just needs to cripple the Republican Party. That's it. Legitimate charges of sedition can be made against literally hundreds of key members, both of the Republican Party and of collaborators and enablers that are adjacent but not directly part of it. That is a fully legitimate legal thing that can be done. Anything associated with Jan 6, it can be done. And I mean, like the alternative here, like let's face it, the alternative to some kind of radical action here is just like we go the way of Nazi Germany. That is what will happen next. That's not like a worst timeline scenario. That is just what will happen, what has happened, unless real action is taken, you know? Like, I mean, Adolf Hitler said it himself. The only way our movement could have been stopped is if it was crushed with overwhelming force in its infancy, which we're well beyond that, you know, the QAnon, like, openly fascist Republican Party, you know, as opposed to the latent fascism of, like, neoliberalism, neoconservatism, where we sort of promote fascism abroad and we promote, like, social austerity to the point where, you know, sort of like fascistic xenophobia is one of the few ways we have of unifying the country, as opposed to like the soft implicit fascisms before, you know, explicit open like we will take power and kill you fascism in its current state. We're well past the in its infancy point, you know, but it hasn't fully catalyzed. We're not there yet, but most everyone in this chat right now will live to see that happen unless something is done. Did Democrats even defund the police in San Francisco? No. Anytime they say the Democrats defund, they're lying. Like every time. The police department budgets are very much like a capitalist economy in the sense that if it doesn't keep going up, people assume something is wrong. So like defunding the police, according to Republicans, can include like keeping the police budget the same as it was last year or increasing it by less than it increased from last year to current. You know, it doesn't mean anything. It's good to point out Nancy is a target because they believe her to be an evil Marxist. They believe every Democrat is an evil Marxist. Like Pelosi is legendary for like being a do-nothing centrist moderate type. Like lefties don't claim her, you know? But I would be very suspicious of any lefty accounts you see that are taking this not seriously because it's Pelosi, because that's literally the equivalent of like brown shirts murdering social democrat politicians in Weimar Germany, and you're like, haha, yes, those guys aren't communists. So it's actually funny when the fascists are extrajudicially executing or attempting to execute them, you know. Very short-sighted, very myopic, that you know, that approach. Tucker literally prompted everything that guy believed. Yes, everything that guy believed. Like everything is just essentially like an endorsed position of the Republican Party. They won't say that it's like Jews are controlling Ukraine. Fuck, at least they won't now. They've been way more active with the anti-Semitism the past couple of days because of Kanye. Like, I've seen like way more people on the right who are just like, well, why should we care about Kanye's anti-Semitism when the left is so anti-white? I mean, I've seen multiple accounts saying that, that generally pose as like more like, you know, broader conservative accounts. I don't know if anything that explicit is going to be like the mainstream narrative for a while, but we're certainly going in that direction.
Images, all the social media posts included transphobic images.
All these nations preparing for World War trans.
Linked to websites claiming COVID vaccines were deadly.
Is it possible?
Oh yeah, it's like how well, yeah, of course, yeah. Again, like being this guy is the mainstream Republican position now. Yes, World War trans, of course. I believe that was when Tucker Carlson was saying that we were only supporting Ukraine. No, it was Tucker Carlson saying that Russia might be right to be invading and conquering Ukraine as a way to defend themselves from transgender ideology. Yes, that was it. Which is, again, to be clear, a Nazi argument. The idea that like military aggression is justified to defend yourself against social liberalism was explicitly the position taken by the Nazi Party, you know, like like directly and unambiguously. How many? That was Jordan Peterson. Well, Jordan Peterson said that as well, I think, or maybe it was just him and Tucker Carlson said something similar. I don't know. Yeah, it is truly remarkable. You know, how does this compare to the attempt on Kavanaugh in terms of the stochastic element? The attempt on I don't remember the details of that. I do remember that when there were peaceful protesters directly outside the houses of Supreme Court justices, there was immediately bipartisan legislation passed in order to protect them. But like an attempted assassination on Nancy Pelosi is not going to warrant anything. Young Ken Pepe posting in a speech today.
Listen, Speaker Pelosi's husband, they had a break-in last night in their house, and he was assaulted. There's no room for violence anywhere, but we're going to send her back to be with him in California. That's what we're going to go do. That's what we're going to go do.
Yeah, like, this is what you're going to get. It's like, oh, I disavow violence, but by the way, like, the Republicans are like, they are doing the blood libel thing. And, you know, they're enemies who have to be stopped at any cost. At any cost. So that's what we're going to get, like, all over a lot of politicians aren't even going to they aren't even going to, like, pretend to disavow this. I mean, I think he just means they're going to get her sacked. Yeah, that's what he's saying explicitly, but the implicit message here is like, an assassin tried to kill her in her California home. Oh, hey, we disavow violence, but, you know, she wasn't at that home, so let's send her back to that home. Like, you know, let's get her out of here. Let's send her to the place where her husband was attacked. Like, I want you to imagine any world in which language like this, like 10, 20 years ago, wouldn't immediately get, like, obliterated across the aisle. Nothing like this was even even remotely acceptable a while back. But now, like, I don't think we're going to see any, like, kind of sincere response from the right outside of, if we do see it, it'll be like essentially just an endorsement of what happened. Wouldn't it lead to better outcomes for the left if the assassins actually succeeded? How? How would fascists successfully killing the Speaker of the House possibly what possible benefit could we derive from this? This is, okay, I'm just going to say this right now, okay? This is something you all have to understand, and this really sucks because I know you guys were riding the high of, like, 2020 and 2016 Bernie Sanders relevancy. The left is done right now. It's gone, okay? There is one fight in this country, and it is fascism versus anti-fascism. That is it. In the US, that is all we have room for. There is no left front. There is no wing where we get to push things how we want. We do not have the power or the numbers. There is no cause we are capable of leaning on in a fashion which is different from that which the liberals will. We do not have the power to achieve these things. If you delude yourself into thinking that you have that power, you're going to go the exact same route the Stalinists did in Germany right before the Nazis took over, where you delusionally believe that you're capable of some kind of, like, kingmaker wedge position, and then you fucking die in a camp, you know? Right now, the one cause is anti-fascism. That is the single thing that we can do. And if that sucks, like, it's like, oh wow, it's giving up. No, it's not giving up. Continuing to fight the fascists is not giving up. It's not giving up to recognize the greater priority right now, you know? We're not like playing with Legos in a room, you know? We don't have, like, the free right to build out our systems as we wish. There are things that have to be determined and accomplished first. And one of those is not dying in a fucking camp. So that is what we have to focus on. There is no, and there no longer is there any, this is good for the left. There is only, this is good for fascists or not good for fascists. That's it. And your participation in that process is morally obligatory. It is necessary for you to understand your role as a leftist is to aid in, at all times, the opposition to fascism. You know, you do not have the privilege of getting to constantly tinker around with socialist adjacent politicking when the world is burning around you. That is just not what you get to do. You know, in large part, the effectiveness of fascists in this country has been in constantly molding their approach and their rhetoric to the times they live in, taking advantage of every wedge issue, every bit of xenophobia that they can take advantage of. You know, they change and they shift. They're completely ideologically amorphous because all they really need is the power, right? And as long as they're accumulating that, they're fine. And unfortunately, you know, if there is anything to be learned from that, it is simply that, like, you know, you have to know the moment that you live in. You know, you have to understand the times. Because if you can't do that, then